And good evening and welcome to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. My guest this evening is Gabe Kautzner. Gabe, welcome. How are you?
Good, very good. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thanks for coming down. So we're going to talk about your show. We're going to talk about Veterans Affairs. We're just going to cover a whole plethora of information tonight. But before we get started, tell us a little bit about yourself and exactly what you do.
Yeah, I actually work for the vet centers. Basically, what the vet centers are, they were established in 1979, and actually what their mission was to try to get the Vietnam veterans to go to the VA. Kind of an outreach storefront operation. And it was only supposed to be a temporary thing, but it actually turned into a permanent thing, which eventually on the years as it went included World War II, Korean vets, of course the Vietnam vets, and of course now right up to Afghanistan, our newest veterans. And what we do is readjustment counseling services. We try to readjust them back into the community. My job in it is more of the psychosocial part of it, which is like jobs, transportation, helping them to go through education. And I don't do as much of the psychological stuff. I'm more out in the community. Okay. And I also go to a lot of events to try to get the educational part out, the information, so that they know that there's people out there that can help them.
How long have you been with the organization?
I came back from Iraq in 2005, and probably within 4 months, I was actually hired by the VA at vet centers, and I started my mission helping veterans.
Very cool, very, very rewarding, it sounds like.
My heart is definitely into it. Both of my brothers were in the military. My younger brother was in the Air Force. He was 21 years with the Air Force. My older brother, he did about 17 years with the Army National Guard. And then of course I did with the Army. I did, 17, 18 years. And I was with the Army Reserves when I left.
Now, you said you were over in Iraq. What types of...
Well,
what did you do?
Actually, most of my time in the Army Reserves was a mechanic, and then I also became a truck driver as a secondary MOS, which is your military occupational specialty. Okay. And when I got called up to go to Iraq in 2003, I served in 2004 and then into 2005, and we actually hauled fuel, 5,000-gallon tankers, around in Iraq, which was quite the experience. And I also worked on the trucks and the military vehicles when we were there.
Wow, that sounded like it was a very interesting time being there.
Yes, it was. I mean, there was some other stuff that I did with the Army Reserves, which was very rewarding. I was down in Panama when we got Noriega out. There was a little bit of a fight over there, yeah. And we went there as a reserve unit. I was with an engineering unit. We actually did some construction work while we were there. So there was a lot of rewarding different things that I did. If I could do it again, I'd do it right away. Yeah, I love the military. I love everything about it. I guess that's why I love what I do, that I do now, is to help all of the veterans that I connect with to try to make them as successful as they can be in civilian life.
Exactly, and I'm like I said, I'm sure when you are overseas and then you come back, and I'm sure there's a little bit of a reality check as far as things going on.
Yeah, I don't, I talk about it right now. Actually, there's a lot of benefits in being in the military, and of course leaving the military. Right. One of them is education, mm-hmm. and this year I'm graduating and getting my master's in social work. Yes. So I'll be able to do some counseling with some of the veterans, which I wasn't able to before because I didn't have my degree. And I've been working on that for a while I've been doing outreach. It's just a mission that I said that I must do. It's the same way a lot of people always ask me, why do I have a bald head? It's like when I was in Iraq, I took a picture of a temperature gauge at 120 degrees in the shade.
Oof.
And I just don't like the smell of hair.
Yeah, right.
That's nasty.
Yeah.
So I shaved my head, and I said that I keep my head shaved until all of our men and women are home. But yet we're still in Afghanistan,
Yeah.
and I still work with them. A lot of Army, National Guard, Air Guard in the state of Connecticut. I try to help as much as I can, and like I said, I do everything that I possibly can, and I work very closely with a lot of representatives and a lot of people at the VA Medical Center also.
What else do you want to tell us about your experiences with the VA, and maybe get some the word spread out?
The biggest thing is one of the reasons why I really was kind of attracted to the vet centers. I really went to vet centers for readjustment counseling. I went there for therapy. And one of the team leaders, back then they used to call them team leaders, now they're called directors, that ran the building or one of the vet centers, talked me into it, and took them 5 times to talk me into it, because I was a mechanic all my life. I was a service manager. I worked for UPS for a number of years as a maintenance supervisor and as a mechanic. So this was 180 degrees for me when he asked me to do this. And he kind of told me, he says, you're a people person. You love to talk, you love to connect, you just really get to the core of things, and you would love this job. Yeah. Tell me, please do this. So after the 5th time he told me, and he said he'd take care of everything, make sure that I put in my paperwork and everything else. I put it in 2005. I actually joined as an outreach specialist, and that was pretty much in the middle of the Iraq War. So we were still getting a lot of men and women that were coming out that needed our help. The VA also needed to make sure that these men and women, just like the Vietnam vets, Vietnam veterans, we now needed to get the Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom veterans into the VA to make sure that they understood that they have benefits and that they do need to get help sometimes to be able to just be able to have a normal life back once what they did before they were sent off to war.
Now, if people want to contact you, how can they go by doing so?
They can contact me at 203-500-2129.
Okay.
And they can also contact the Orange Vet Center, which is on 291 South Lambert Road. The office number is 203-795-0148. And I kind of read the office number because my cell number is my work number and my office number.
Right.
That's the number they call me. I have a government car. I can come out. I can meet them for a cup of coffee. I can meet them at their home. I can meet them at their business, because sometimes it is difficult for a lot of veterans when they come home just to get into the swing of things. Right. And sometimes they can't take the time off. The other place that I'm very busy in is a lot of the colleges and universities. I go to them and I try to connect with the veterans in what they call the Oasis. Every state college and university has what they call an Oasis, which is a students' lounge where only veteran students go. And I try to immerse myself in there so that I'm available and I'm there. I'm not overwhelming to any of the veterans. I just make myself available. When they're ready to talk, when they're ready to maybe want to ask a question, I'm there. And then of course I try to give out information and knowledge is power,
right.
because a lot of veterans don't know or even use 10% of their benefits that they really should be using.
Right. Now, if you're out talking to a veteran, what are some of the most common issues that you hear about, or does it vary?
Well, most of the time, the common issues are when they first come back. They may have some, they may have some trouble readjusting to the civilian life.
Right.
I don't like to use it too much, but PTSD is the word that they like throwing around, post-traumatic stress disorder. But there's also depression, there's also other issues that might come up. What makes the Vet Center really pretty amazing is that the Vet Center the confidentiality is separate from the VA as far as their main server. Their information is very, very confidential, and the reason they do that is a lot of veterans always worry that somebody's going to find out. Now, if I'm a veteran and I get back and I come back and I want to say be a fireman or a police officer,
right.
I want to make sure that there's no possible way anybody could find out that I'm going to get any mental health problems resolved, or if I just want to go in and talk with somebody. Sometimes you don't have to have a mental health problem. It could be just a readjustment problem. And that's one of the reasons that we're there, and most of the veterans are very comfortable coming to us to talk about things like that.
Gabe, would you mind sticking around? We're going to go into a break. Would you mind sticking around?
What's that?
Would you mind sticking around?
Yeah.
All right, we'll be right back.
Kids will spend 15 minutes watching online videos like this one.
Brushing for 2 minutes now can save your child from severe tooth pain later. 2 minutes, twice a day. They have the time.
It's a beautiful day out here. Sunny today with light breezes, giving way to clouds in the afternoon. We could see some light precipitation to moderate precipitation later on, followed by powerful storm-like conditions. 90 miles per hour winds are expected. Authorities are asking everyone, stay indoors. Come on, that's it. Let's go.
And welcome back to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show, sitting here with Gabe Kautzner. Gabe, welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we talked about in the first segment, we talked about the veteran side of things. Let's open up this segment. I understand that you and I have a couple mutual media friends in common, but we're going to talk about that this segment.
Yes,
but
do.
We're also going to talk about, you also host a public affairs show here at Valley Shore Community Television. Tell us a little bit about your show.
Yes, it's Connecticut Veterans Views, and basically it's informational. What I try to do is I have guests that come on that are either part of a program or work at the VA, and try to inform the veterans that are out in the community about what is available to them and what programs they can access in order to just have a better life. As like today, I had a guest on. He talked about the importance of registering with the VA Medical Center and all the benefits that comes along with it. My shows are, of course, I talk about the vet centers. There's 4 vet centers in the state of Connecticut. There's one in Danbury, there's one in Hartford, there's one in Norwich, and of course ours is in New Haven. It's the New Haven Vet Center, but it's orange, and that covers the state of Connecticut. There's 300 vet centers in the United States, including Hawaii, Guam, and Puerto Rico.
Wow.
Lots of times, we used to have a saying, it's the best kept secret in the VA. Because we are a storefront run operation that does outreach, we are away from the VA Medical Center. We are in the community, which makes it a lot easier for a lot of veterans to come and see us to get services. They feel more comfortable sometimes. Hospital settings sometimes can not upset people, but can put you in a little bit of a different, mood. So that's why we offer that.
Okay. And you and I also have another mutual friend in common. You and I also do a spot on WNHU Radio together.
Oh yeah, I love WNHU.
Me as well. How long have you been doing your show on WNHU?
We were talking about that. I've been doing it since
we don't remember.
Right, since it was in the basement.
Yeah, that's right.
Down under where the pipes ran in communication building.
Yes.
And I actually was asked by one of the University of New Haven communication students to do this show.
Okay.
And they asked me, well, what would you like to call it? And, what would it be about? And I actually went up to see the director of that, the program.
Yep.
And he was not a veteran himself, but he just felt that it was important for me to get all of this information out into the community, and UNH was behind it.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought that was really, really nice. And of course now it's Bruce Barber is running it.
Absolutely.
My favorite from, they call it PLR, but it was WPLR back in my days.
Mine as well.
And I remember Bruce very well. Excellent person to work with. And he's very, very community orientated, just as the school.
Oh, yeah.
He says, Gabe, we need this. This is what the community needs. They need to know more about what's going on in the world, especially with the veterans.
Yeah. And the funny thing is you and I both do a show on WNHU.
Correct.
For a project that I'm working on for a nonprofit that I'm involved with. I did an interview this afternoon on my way here with WQUN Radio.
Okay.
I was on the air with Brian Smith.
Oh, there you go.
Who was the other half
Right. And it's funny because I think it was Brian Smith that I saw. I do a lot of fairs.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest ones that I do is actually it's a carnival. It's the Orange Firemen's Carnival.
Okay.
Which is the oldest firemen's support carnival in Connecticut.
I've heard of it. I've never been.
It's huge. It's for 4 days. And he was there. I saw him walk in, and I was talking to him. He's like, "Hey, what's going on?"
Yeah.
And I love radio. I love TV. I love media. I think where it all started was when I was in high school, and I had a little segment that I called, I was Mr. Science, and I had this white coat on, and I had the usual volcano that was exploding, with the smoke, and I made it crazy, and somebody came running in with a fire extinguisher.
Put the fire out.
Right, and then, I made movies, on movie class in high school, and I just always loved it. I don't know if it was because I was a ham or it was more just having fun.
I don't know.
I just loved having fun. I always loved having fun. So.
Well, speaking of hams, I also understand you have a time slot with WCNX Radio and WCNX Television in Middletown.
Correct.
And the wonderful people there are John and Judy Clark.
Correct. And I've known them for a while, and they actually, I was very involved with them. The first time I was involved with them was when I was with CTV, which is the Sandbox Chronicles. It's another public access TV show that I run in New Haven. I was doing that show, and he was actually putting it on his radio station. He was kind of running, the show when I did it. And then we kind of broke away from each other, and we went into something, we went into this. because he had sent me an email and he said, geez, you know, it'd be great if you could go down to the, you know, the West Shore,
Yeah.
you know, TV, and you could do something there. I would be able to cover even more area. And my whole thing out of this is the more media that I can use to cover more of the state, to get the word out, as I like to put it, the better I feel. The better I feel that veterans are actually getting the information, and none of them are trying to fish around or just say, I didn't know. Because the biggest thing that veterans always tell me, since I've been doing this since 2005, is I didn't know. I didn't know about this program, I didn't know about this service, and I just don't want that to happen anymore. I really want to get that to every veteran. I want to make sure they know, each and every one, men and women.
Now let's talk about some veterans issues, and I'll let you,
Sure.
whatever issue you want to start with, and maybe explain a little bit about the issue we're going to talk about.
Sure.
So I don't know where you want to start, but...
Well, you know, as far as the mental health issue,
Sure.
there's a lot of different mental health issues. I usually don't get into that. That's
No.
not my expertise
Right.
there, even though I'm going to school. All I can say is that there is readjustment counseling services available. There's counseling services available up at the VA Medical Center. Like I said, I do a lot of psychosocial work, which is pretty much your basic stuff that you have, like transportation, housing. I also work with homeless veterans, if there are any homeless veterans. There's a number of different services that I can help with when we're dealing with veterans. And of course, my biggest part is outreach. 20% of my outreach is media involved, is getting the word out and going to country fairs and going to different venues and different activities. I mean, I'll tell you, I don't know how much more fun I could have. You know, I just love getting out there. I love being with the people, with the veterans, and just trying to get as much as I can out there to make sure they know what their entitlements and benefits are.
And obviously the entitlements and the benefits, do they vary, or does it?
Yes, they do. There's educational, there's compensation in case you got injured.
Yeah.
The VA will actually compensate you with a certain percentage, which comes to a certain dollar value,
Okay.
which they would get every month. This is for their disability because they were in the service and they got hurt. Educational wise, there's voc rehab, there's the GI Bill, now it's the post 9/11 GI Bill, which is fantastic education opportunities. I just wish more veterans would know about it and use it. Most of them do now because the post 9/11 GI Bill is so great. I mean, they even give you a stipend for living, for getting your own apartment, so or housing, and that's basically what I do.
Very neat. Sounds like you
I
got
just
a lot going on.
all I can say is I just love doing it, and I'm going to get my social work degree. It's going to be pretty hard for me to go into counseling and be in a room when I can get out into the community and be out there.
How's school going? How are your classes going?
Classes are all done. I actually graduate this May.
Okay.
I finished up at University of Southern California only because they have a concentration in military and military family, and I wanted to try to stay in that venue as much as possible. And after I graduate, I have to get my license, and that's about basically it. But that's where I'm at now.
Cool. Very nice. Sounds like you're busy and you care a lot about the community. You care a lot about the veterans.
But I also care a lot about the caregivers of the veterans,
Right.
the mothers, the fathers, the brothers, the sisters that don't understand what might be going on with the veteran or what needs they may need. And that's why I like to put myself out there. People can always call me, because the question you don't ask is the one that doesn't get answered.
Exactly.
And people need to ask more questions, and they can always call my phone number. And I believe my phone number's up on the screen.
I was going to say, why don't we give it right now before, because we got
Okay,
a
it's
little bit more time.
203-500-2129. 203-500-2129. And that's 24/7. They can call me. That's my outreach cell with the VA.
Okay, cool. And before we say goodnight, is there a website if people want more information on?
Yes, they can go to www.vetcenters.va.gov.
Okay.
They got a 24-hour call center in case you're in crisis, and they have a lot of information on there. If there is any veterans out there that are having trouble getting on it, they can always call me, and I can walk them through on a computer.
Cool. Well, Gabe Kautzner, we're about to say goodnight, so before we do, I want to thank you for coming down, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Okay, thank you. It was a great pleasure to be a guest on your show.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank
See
you.
you soon.
Bye-bye.
On behalf of Gabe Kautzner, I'm Pete Mezzetti. Thanks and good night, and we'll see you next time.